Hey everyone. Thanks for joining me on Out of the Reads. I'm your host, Natasha. And today we are going to be talking with my mom in a little bit, Julia Gordon. She graciously accepted and is talking to us on our seventh episode about mothers and daughters and the relationship. So it's really cool because it's the idea, right, of the daughter now turning into the mother and the mother turning into the grandmother and still fostering a mother-daughter relationship in the midst of all of that. So we'll speak with her in a little bit, but I figured we could get into the reads by pulling a read today. This is the Sacred Creator's Oracle, and I've pulled from this deck before. So let's see what's in store for us for our seventh episode, completing the arc of a first season, which I wanted to complete with a seventh episode just because, in true spiritual fashion, there's seven chakras: the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and then the crown chakra. So we are sitting with the crown today. My mom, the queen, the crown. Hmm. So we got the spark of hustle. Oh, I feel that. As I sit here on my podcast, I feel the spark of the hustle. What does it have to say? Essential meaning: the spark of inspiration, divine intervention, finding your calling, work that makes you happy, renewed hope. Well, I really do feel that, guys, on a very visceral level. I've done a lot of pivoting within the past few years, and I'm super excited about bringing this show to you and all that's to come. So thanks for being here for it. And yeah, I'm super excited. So without further ado, let's get into the reads with my mom, Julia Gordon. About your own mother's parenting. And when you were a kid, do you feel like you did anything different from how she parented you to how you parented me?
Well, Tasha, I was born in a little island,
Yes.
and that's very different to start
Which
off.
little island? Because not everybody knows.
It's right, Barbados.
Yeah.
It's a little island in the Caribbean or Caribbean, whichever way you want to say. And I think the lifestyle was very different, but
Hmm.
it was simple. But yet it was, how did mom parent? Mom parented with a lot of discipline,
Okay.
but not mean discipline.
Hmm.
We just a lot of respect. We were never allowed to call our elders or grown-ups by their first name. It was either
Right.
Mr. or Mrs. or if they were close friends, it would be aunt or uncle. So
Hmm.
all that was different. As far as discipline, we really weren't allowed to, as they say, talk back.
Right.
So there wasn't a lot of open conversation about when something needs to be done. You know, you had to do it. You know, for the boys, of course, because I had three brothers, they
Yeah,
would.
you're the youngest of five.
I
You have
am
three
so
older
five
brothers, one
and one
sister.
sister.
Yeah.
Correct.
And fun fact about your sister, right? You guys are 4 years
Right.
apart to the day.
Exactly right. Exactly
Same
right.
birthday
It is. So in a way, it seemed like an only child because
because of
when
the
I
gap.
right, 4 years, yes, yeah. So it was a little different for me. For her, she was like a tomboy because she
Mm,
had three brothers,
right.
and the brothers were, they were into stuff like boys are.
Yeah, like
So
boys.
right, right. And of course, their discipline was if they didn't hear, they'd get spanking. But I think
Okay.
the girls learned from that, and so we didn't do anything that deserved a spanking.
Gotcha.
But it was just, I think it was unspoken words you understood, like for instance, if we wanted something, because dad was more soft. So we
Mhm.
would go to dad first. And what would dad say is, what did your mother say?
Right. Right.
And of course, we knew what that meant. We had to go to mom. And
Mhm.
whatever mom said, that was it.
Mhm.
So it was that kind of thing. But, I think we had a lovely childhood.
Mhm.
I don't think if you asked any one of us, they would say differently. It
Right.
was free, outside, you didn't have to consider like a lot of things today where, the dangers that are around you, you know, have to be very watchful. It was a more free way of living.
Yeah.
the boys could go to the beach whenever they wanted, stay out, and play, and never was a concern, and again, like I was speaking to my brother today, and he said to me, it was so, if you did something wrong and you were down the road on a neighbor and they came to you, to mom or dad, and said that you had done something that you shouldn't have, we had to pay the price for that. So they
Right.
kind of looked out for each other, so
Mhm.
we never had to really worry. So in that respect, it's very different. We didn't have sleepovers with friends. We didn't have,
Yeah.
play dates.
You
So
know, what's really interesting about that too, not to cut you off, but, like,
sure, no, absolutely.
the interesting thing is I remember having sleepovers, like, in the
Sure,
'90s and stuff like that,
absolutely.
but, like, the boys don't. My boys don't anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it's so interesting because it's, like, hearing you say that it's not something
Right.
that you guys did, whereas, like, now I don't know if it's also too because of their age, they're younger right now, 8 and almost 5,
Yeah.
but, like, I've heard some who are maybe starting to, but, like, and they don't really ask to. Like, and if they do, we've done maybe one sleepover, and I think Justin was present with them at his brother's house with their
Right.
cousin.
Right.
So it
Yes. Yes.
wasn't
That's
like it's
different.
not with
Yeah.
friends, it's just with family right now. So it's kind
Right.
of interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's across the board of my generation,
Yeah.
but I've heard from some other peers, like maybe one peer who's doing it maybe, and others who are like, "No, we're just not really doing that." So
Yeah, I think now it seems like it's more, as you would say, a community. The parents
Mm,
get together, the kids get together. It's not
right.
something that the kids are being dropped off and at one place and the
Yeah.
parents go somewhere else. And we didn't even have that. But I think that sounds to me more like what it is now.
Mhm.
It's more of a gathering than a
Yeah.
sleepover kind of thing. You
Yeah.
know, you know.
Yeah, how would you say, like, just in bringing up, like I did a second ago about, in the '90s, like, when I was growing up and having
Right,
sleepovers, you know, like you said, you're from Barbados, so you moved to this country,
right.
when you were 19, right?
Yes,
So
so I
you
really grew up at home and then, of course, 3 years in New Zealand, but yeah,
yeah.
by the time I got here, I was, yeah, a young adult.
Yeah, young adult, and so from that time on, America became your home,
Correct.
but your family, even though, like, I know you came here because Aunt Deb, your sister,
Right,
was here at
right.
the time in New York, but once she left, you remained. So
Good.
all of your family, either, in New Zealand or whoever was left in Barbados or wherever, you not having your own community here,
Right, right.
how did you create that? And how did that either give you support, or if it didn't, was it something that you felt lonely, at times trying to navigate through being a
Uh,
mother and not really having, a family community around you? How did you create that for
uh,
yourself and for me?
well, I think, first of all, the family being away when
Right.
you were born, they would come and they would spend, a significant amount of time, 3 months max.
Yeah.
And so that was in the very beginning when you
Mhm.
when you were a baby. So I had to kind of navigate quickly and figure things out.
Yeah.
But it was very different because, as you know, you grew up in the dance world, and so
Yeah.
that
Yes,
was
I
our
did.
business. Yeah, and that was our
Yeah.
business, and so it was very different. It was difficult to have a community, as you would say today, because the hours of work are not 9 to 5.
Right. Right.
It's noon till 10 o'clock at night.
Sure.
So it was really more like unsociable hours because
Yeah.
when everybody is getting ready to go to bed, we're just getting home from work.
Right.
So in that respect, that was difficult. So making friends, and making a community wasn't that easy. But I
Would
was
you
always
say that
busy.
would you say that the dance world fostered a community? Like, I mean, I remember a lot of the times being at times the only child in the room,
Right,
but were
right.
there others? Did you rely on the dance community for people who had children, or just even people who
No,
didn't have children as
no,
support?
no, because that was our business.
Hmm.
So it's different. The term "don't mix business with pleasure." So
Right,
it
right.
really wasn't that easy to form friendships.
Mm.
in that way, friendships through business, colleagues,
Mhm.
but not necessarily friendships that you associate with the same.
Mhm.
So that was difficult. But then again, being not having family and
Mhm.
having a child, your life is full.
Mhm.
I worked full time. I had so it really didn't leave a lot of time for even loneliness because there
Mm.
was always something to do.
Mhm.
And my focus was, once you came into my world, my focus was you,
Mhm.
even though I worked, even though I took care of you. And, I just don't know if I felt lonely per se.
Mhm.
Like I said, and I think loneliness is when you have a lot of downtime.
It can
And
be. I think it
yeah,
I think it also depends too, right? Like, you can also feel like you're in the room with a lot of people and feel lonely.
that's true.
You can feel lonely if you don't feel that someone sees you. And
That's
so, I don't know if that's something that I mean, just based on what you were saying with your upbringing, it
right.
also does sound like there's just a lot of, at least from what I'm taking away from it, a lot of, these are just the things that we did.
Right.
And
Exactly.
because these are just the things that we did, I didn't question it.
Right. And that's very true. But
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I didn't
Okay.
feel like things were taken away. I think just was more of a matter of fact kind of life. This is what
Mhm.
you go
Right.
about your business, do what you have to do, you
Mhm.
know. And I think being raised in that way kind of helped me for later on.
It sounds like it, honestly.
Yes.
It sounds like it. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, even hearing what you're saying and trying to put myself in your shoes, granted, very different
Yes, of
experiences,
course, of course.
just hearing that, I feel like for me, it would be hard if I didn't have that kind of upbringing to
Of-
just soldier on. I think it would be very difficult. I think I would crumble personally.
Yeah,
Just knowing my own self,
of
that
course.
would be very difficult for me. But it sounds
Yeah.
like it was a necessity in a way.
Yeah.
Prepared you.
Absolutely. And I think, you love the community. I'm not saying I
Right.
don't love the community, but I think it's very important for you. You
Mhm.
need those connections, you
And
know.
that's
Yeah.
something that I wanted to ask you too, and you saying that right now, and again, not to cut you off,
No, no.
but, like, in you witnessing me, your only child, become a mother and knowing me as you know your child,
Yes.
what do you see in the differences for us? What do you see that, not even just for my generation or anything like that, but what has been the difference that you've witnessed in my mothering versus how you mothered?
And I think that's it. I think you need a community. You
Mhm.
need those external connections. I think that's super important for you.
Mhm.
Without that, you feel like there's something missing.
Mhm. Mhm.
For me, I don't focus on it.
Mhm.
I I'm very happy in my own world, put it
Mhm.
that way.
Mhm.
Again, because I was the youngest and
Mhm.
I had a godmother and I had an aunt that didn't have any children.
Right.
So come summertime, I was loaned out to them.
So, like you
But
said before, you're kinda like an only child in
right,
some
right.
respect. Mm.
Exactly. So I had to entertain myself in many ways. So I don't know if, and I think maybe I'm a bit of an introvert anyway.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily seek as much external connections as is
Mm.
important to you.
Yeah, and it's funny because for me, I think I probably mentioned it in the last show, just, like, there's times where I feel introverted, like I need to recharge alone, but there's
Right.
times where I feel like I teeter on extroversion, where I need quality, I would say quality
Right.
interactions that feel
Yes.
fueling. Otherwise, I feel like when you're interacting with, in spaces where, at least for me, it feels like it's just small talk or it doesn't really feel like there's a connection, that's very draining. But when
Right.
the quality is there or the community,
Yeah.
the people that you've really gravitated towards, then it does feel fulfilling. But
Of course.
I don't think in hearing you say that, I don't think I realized even growing up that maybe you were an introvert, you know? Hearing you say it now, it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
yes, check, check,
Yes.
check."
Yeah.
But but I don't think I realized it till now.
I think it's because the world you grew up in, the
Right.
dance world, that you would not consider someone being in that introvert.
Correct.
So I
Yes.
think that's yeah, so I think you see that and you think, "Oh, yeah, of course not." But not necessarily, I always liked to be in the background. I think you know
Yeah.
that.
Well,
You
yes.
know,
Yeah.
most of the work I ever did was in the background. I'm not saying that I didn't
Well,
perform
I
at
think you
times
should
and stuff like that,
highlight
but
that. No, nobody really knows. I mean, yes, I'm from the dance world, but nobody knows, your side of that. So, how did you get into that and tell us a little bit about it?
I mean, I started studying dancing when I was in New Zealand, and then when
Mhm.
I came to the United States, I continued with Arthur Murray's, which
Right.
everybody probably knows Arthur Murray's
Yeah. Yeah.
one
In
time or
New York.
another. Right, right. Yes, in
Right.
New York, and I was there for 14 years in
Yeah.
the dance world, and that's how I met your dad.
Right.
We were in the same world together,
Right.
and just continued through that, and then eventually we owned our own business in New York.
Right.
And then from there, we came to Florida and
Florida.
continued in the dance
Yeah.
world. And at one point, we had 4 businesses, and I
Yeah.
did all the book work, all
Right.
for that. So that, having you, the homemaker, my world was full. And that
Yeah.
didn't mean that when I got together with friends,
Mhm.
the few that I had, that I
Mhm.
wouldn't enjoy my time with them, that it
Mhm.
would be wonderful. But I don't know if I would seek it out.
Mm. Mhm.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, it was okay because, well, I focused on you and, all
Sure.
that you needed, and maybe at times, to a fault
Well,
because,
I mean,
you know
I would say, the difference that I see now, at least from speaking to the women I speak to, mothers that I speak to, there's a lot more space now, I feel like, for women of my generation for focusing on ourselves, not necessarily in a self-ish kind of way. However, I feel like there's a feeling of I need to think of my needs. I can't have them come last if
Right.
I'm going to sustain a family and so on and so forth. How do you feel like that is a shift from, and I don't know if it is, but do you see that as a shift from your generation when you were raising me versus today and how you see me raise my boys?
Yeah, I do believe that it's the generation is different. I do see
Mhm.
that. I think you were saying it's not selfish, but it's more like a self need
Yeah.
that you need these connections with other families, with just time for yourself.
Mhm.
For me, that was more of a privilege.
Mhm.
It wasn't something that was done on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it, and I think maybe because I wasn't around others that had that kind of way of life. So that to me, I see is very different.
Mhm.
You know, all the time was spent, it was always spent in family, in what needs the family
Right.
had. And that was to fulfill those needs.
Right. Like a selfless devotion.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a feeling of like, that's the word I'm looking for, where you feel resentful because you didn't have time for yourself.
Mhm.
It wasn't that kind of a thing at all. First of all, it was very difficult for me to get pregnant.
Mhm.
So I think also that makes a difference as well.
I would definitely say, and I'm glad you highlighted that because yeah, and you should definitely share that story.
I never thought it would happen.
Mhm.
And when it did, it was like a miracle for
Yeah,
me. And so once it came
you guys were
nine
married in
years,
1979 and you
yes,
9 years before I was born.
correct, correct, right.
Mhm.
And not all 9 years were of trying, but the fact that when I did try for the number of years, and a lot of times I did nothing to prevent it, so it didn't happen naturally. I actually
Mhm.
had to go through a process in order to get pregnant.
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
for me, my focus then became you,
Mm.
and that's all I wanted. You
Right.
know, I had
Mhm.
you, I had my work. So it didn't feel like I was missing out. But again, like I said, I think every personality is different.
For sure.
Our times are different.
Yeah.
There's a lot more exposure, technology, and things like that. So I just think that, yeah, I don't feel like I missed out on anything.
Mhm.
by not
Mhm.
having the community. I would have liked, yes, I would have loved for you to be closer to cousins and
Right, family.
family like that. Yeah, but by not
Mhm.
having family, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So that I felt I missed out on for you.
Mhm. Mhm. It is.
Yeah, nothing is perfect.
Yeah, for sure. And in you talking about how challenging it was for you to get pregnant, and I also wonder because I remember in the past asking you when I was a kid, like, "Did you always know you wanted kids?" And I remember you saying at the time, like, "I never really thought about that."
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
something that you still feel?
I didn't until I wanted.
Okay, right.
You know,
Yeah,
then it was like, okay, why is it not happening?
right.
And I even remember saying to my mom, how sad I was and talking about not being able to get pregnant and how that made me feel. And her response I thought was wonderful. She said to me, she used to call me Jew. She
Mhm.
would say, Jew, I don't know what that feels like.
Mm,
I can't, I don't have anything to share with you because whenever I wanted to get pregnant, I got pregnant, you
yeah,
know? So it was in a way it was comforting because she wasn't trying to make up stories of how I should
right.
feel or shouldn't feel.
You
It was like,
appreciated her
yeah,
directness.
exactly. And she was direct, as you well know.
Well, yes, for anybody, I mean, most of you do not know my grandmother. She's anything but beat around the bush type of person.
That's right. No filter.
No, no. Yeah, it's so interesting to me because, I remember being a child and always knowing I wanted to have children and always wanting to be a mom. So when it came very naturally and easily, not to say that you don't appreciate, but I think now in having friends who are struggling, it's like,
Right.
wow, I really do appreciate how easy
Of
that
course.
was for me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also, I think maybe to some degree it was like, okay, I've achieved this. This is something was a life goal of mine. I've not to say like I checked it off a list, but I
Right.
think I felt that there for me there needed to be more. And so that I think that's why I started to create what I created with
Okay.
my tribe and all of those things cuz I needed there to be more than just being a mom for me.
Right. Right.
Which was
Right.
something that I always wanted, but it was
Right.
like, okay,
Right.
I never thought about the other things in my life,
Right. But
it
do
was
you
just
feel that
being a
you
mom.
appreciate it now even more after talking to those that struggled with getting pregnant?
I think so, I think it definitely
Yeah.
gives me pause to realize that, it's definitely not something to be taken for granted,
Right. Right.
that
Yeah.
is it's a privilege that it was easy. How would you say that, I know you know that we are different in how we parent, but now that you're a grandmother, how do you feel that things are different in how you parented versus now how you grandparent and also having grandsons. So, how do those kinds of changes factor into how things are for you now?
Yeah. The thing about it, as you talk about, of course, I didn't have sons, I had a daughter, and you think it's different. And there are some differences. But ultimately, what you come to realize is you just love.
Mm,
And with love, it doesn't matter if it's male or female.
right.
And from a grandparent, that's what I feel when I look at my grandsons. I just see love. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily see a grandson or a granddaughter or whatever. I think as a parent, you have the full responsibility for
Sure.
that child, you know, the welfare, the human that they're going to become later on in life. So it's all on your shoulders.
Mhm.
When you're a grandmother, I think you love more freely
Mm,
because you are not the sole person responsible.
mhm.
It isn't your child, it's your grandchild, but it's
For sure.
somebody else's responsibility to do all the things
The heavy
as a
lifting.
right, exactly, exactly. I mean, you're there and you're there for them in every which way, but the love is different. And I felt it's funny to say this. Of course, you know how deeply I love you,
Mhm.
but I don't think you are as aware of it when you're a mother as
Mhm.
when you are a grandmother.
Mhm.
And I think it's because the everyday life of doing everything constantly, from morning till night, the same
Yeah.
thing, things get lost in that. But as a grandparent, the love is just multiplied.
Sure. I hear
You know,
that so many times from
yeah,
grandparents, that it's
it
like
is.
it's the best thing.
It is. Yeah.
Mm.
And as far as our parenting, as you would say to me, you would say that I was a helicopter mom.
I think we're definitely you're more
Yeah,
type A person, I'm definitely more type
right,
B person, so I
right,
think
right,
that
right.
lends
Yes,
itself to that.
and you want your boys to be more, I wouldn't s yeah, independent, but
Mm,
more of learning, you know,
right.
through their
Doing
own
by
mistakes.
learning.
Right. Know
Mm,
their own mistakes, and that's not how I parented because I don't know if it was because it was so difficult to have you
mm,
to, or just it was, you know, we were raised by children not necessarily being, finding their own way. It's like
yeah.
things were laid out for you, this is what was expected of you and things like that. So I think for me, it was like I never wanted you to hurt. I never
Mm,
wanted you to feel pain if I could avoid it.
right.
And sometimes in that case, you don't always allow room for the child to experience their own, you know?
Yeah,
So
and
I might have done that differently the next
I
time.
mean, I appreciate you saying that because, I remember, like, in college, when I'd come back, you'd be like, "I could still do your laundry for you,"
Right,
and
right.
and
Of
and
course,
things
exactly.
that, like, when I did study abroad, like, I remember I did study abroad in Paris, and for those 3 months, because I'd never really done my laundry, I was washing my clothes, granted, there was a language barrier, but I was washing my clothes with fabric softener for 3 months because I didn't know, and I don't know, trying to speak half French, half English, this woman is telling me that I am washing my clothes with fabric softener and you need to get the soap. So, I and again, could have been part of the language barrier, but yeah, I think there were times where I felt like I had to really push back for independence and to
Yeah,
feel like I need to do some of these life things because I need to, otherwise I won't be able
right.
to.
Yeah,
What I also did notice and wondered how it was for you, because I know when Ollie, my oldest son, when he was really little, he has a very strong will.
yeah,
And coming from your background, like you had mentioned about kids and how
yeah.
things were, you don't challenge your elders kind of a
Right,
thing.
right.
How was that with having a child? Because I don't think I was challenging like that as a child.
No, not at all. That was difficult,
Yeah.
that was difficult
When he
because,
was little. Yeah.
yes, because it's such a fine line. You want to show love to nurture that child. But
Mhm.
sometimes, I don't know, the backlash of, like you said, the strong will and, sometimes what seemed like defiance, you know?
Mhm.
And that's what it would be viewed at when we were growing up. That kind of behavior is defiance, not being able to just comply,
Mhm.
So that was very tough, and knowing how to handle him in a way to help him with his emotions, being so little, of course, but at the same time, being the adult and trying to navigate that wasn't easy, you
Yeah.
know, you know.
Yeah, I remember the
Yeah,
struggle for the 2 of you finding your
yeah,
footing,
yeah.
in
It
the
is.
relationship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want the best for your child, whether it's your grandchild or your child, but not having to deal with it directly, and it was hard, especially at such a young age, because it's almost like, well, who's going to win here, the you child or the adult? You
Right.
know.
Yeah, I definitely remember there being some power struggles, and obviously that's where our different parenting styles, I feel like, really showed up a lot in the beginning just because of you never know what kind of child you're gonna have,
Of
and
course.
so, trying to navigate how to best meet his needs, how to have you be involved, but also know that I'm trying to keep kind of the peace between you and him and make, and trying to find my way as a mom. I think there was definitely a lot of juggling going on, in the
Absolutely.
beginning.
For sure,
Yeah,
because in the back of your mind you're always thinking, okay, the child is not going to stay a child forever. He's going to become a young man and a
sure.
grown man, and so you're always thinking, okay, how do we process this so that
Sure.
it later on doesn't become a problem, you know?
Sure, and so that he can thrive. And in saying that and in seeing me trying to do the juggling and seeing me have do you feel like you've learned anything from witnessing me with the boys
Yeah,
now that maybe that would have been helpful for me or even helped you in your
for sure.
grandparenting?
I think, yes, if I had a little bit more of allowing you to learn by your mistakes, learn
Mm,
by trial and error kind of thing.
mhm,
I think if I was to go back and had another child, hopefully I would have done it that way. Of course, I only had one, so I had one
right.
chance to do it. Whatever
Mhm.
it was, it was, you know. And usually they say the first one is always the hardest because you're learning as you're teaching, you
Yeah,
know. So I didn't really have another chance to put into effect maybe different things. But then again, in saying that, each child is so different.
they are.
So what would the next one be like? Who
Sure.
knows? Yeah. So
Yeah, it's hard to say.
yeah, yeah. Like for instance, with your two, Ollie and Elliot, are
Oh,
so
yeah.
different. You
For
know.
sure. They are. They are. They
So
are.
I think they bring out different things in us as parents as well,
Mhm.
you
For
know?
sure.
Yeah, so yeah,
Well, in saying all of that, I know you said that, you would have liked to have had another child, and unfortunately you didn't get the chance to. You had a hysterectomy when I was how old was I? 7 or
right.
8?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so due to a fibroid that was just too large. Do you feel that, you know, you missed out, or does it feel, again, in
Mhm.
witnessing now me with
Yeah,
2 and
yeah, yeah.
you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but
Yeah, I think I've always would have liked to have had another child
Mhm.
for you
Right.
because you were a child that would have always talked about it. You would
Yeah.
have loved to have another sibling and, you know, and even times I would say, "Well, look, I have siblings and they're not even around," you know, so and
It's
your
not all it's
response.
cracked up to be maybe.
Right, well, your response was very real, and that was, "Yes, but I will never know what it feels like to have a sibling," you
Mm,
know,
mm.
and that broke my heart, you know, but some things just are not in the
The cards.
yeah, in the cards, exactly,
Yeah.
you know, and that wasn't, and, you know, and I think also too because I was on my own
Mhm.
without family, it made
Yeah.
it harder, you know,
Right, right,
yeah,
right.
'cause, there was no one to say, "Okay, you know, I'm gonna take you to your grandmother or your
Right.
grandparents or whatever," and,
The
you know,
relief.
it would right, right, yeah, relief and also to not to worry once you were there, you know,
Right, that I was safe with family
exactly,
or something.
exactly.
Mhm.
It took me a
Mhm.
while before you had any kind of a babysitter,
Yeah.
you know, that's why
Mhm.
wherever I went, you went,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
even if it was to work at times, you know,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't regret any of that, you know, that
Oh,
was a
no, I
choice.
mean, I remember having some great memories of just being in the
Yeah,
office with, like, in a little cozy spot with a
right,
TV, you know?
exactly, exactly,
So,
do what you have to
yeah,
do, you know?
yeah.
You know, and so when I did have a babysitter for you, it was by choice, someone I knew, someone I felt safe with,
Mhm.
and so that was yeah, that's how I did it.
So, my final question to you, Mom, and again, thanks for doing this,
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
is what would you tell, you know, grandmothers of your generation, who, they have daughters, similar age probably to me. Their daughters are having children and they're
Yeah,
grandparenting now. And, what would you say from your experience that's been helpful that you could share, and also maybe from the perspective of being when you were a mom, an immigrant new to this country and you didn't have a community and what you wished you knew, maybe.
that's a hard question, but I think for me, I would say is always let your child feel your presence.
Mm,
You know, it doesn't have to be that you are, as you would say, a helicopter mom, but let them know you're there. Let them know
mhm,
that you're there no matter what, and that gives them security.
mhm,
You know, and in that security, I think they grow more confident, you
mm,
know, and then you're not too far away.
right.
If I can see them and they're safe, fine. I don't have to be on top of them. But
Mhm,
I feel like I always have to know where they are, what they're
mhm,
doing, being safe, you know. And I think I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change that in a grandmother or a mother.
mhm,
You know, I don't feel that you have to take away their curiosity and those things, but and their learning and but be there just to let them know, okay, you know what? They care, you
mhm,
know? You
mhm,
know, because they feel your presence.
mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's what I would say.
When you were new to this country, like, what would you for a mom, knowing what you know now, What would you say? Would they need community? Would have been helpful for you, you know?
It makes things easier.
Yeah.
It does. It makes things easier for you and for the child because
Mhm.
there's there's that feeling of, as you would say, a village,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And I think that is probably good for both child and mother.
Mhm.
But sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, you
Mhm.
know? But I think today it's easier to find that. But then again, once your children start to go to school, I think that happens naturally.
Yeah, I
So the
think I
more
think
you
it
get to
can.
daycare at an earlier age and stuff like
Mhm.
that, you connect with families and then you grow from that. So
Mhm.
I think that's what I would say if you're new to this country and whatever, that's you reach out through, those programs
Yeah.
so that you feel connected, both you and the child.
Yeah. Much more like social media groups, connections now through that, and
Right.
trying to
That's
find
right.
people, even digitally that can also then turn into something,
Exactly.
now, which was non-existent before.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you had to do all the legwork on your
Right.
own, had to
Right.
go seeking it. So
Right.
I think that makes things so much harder then than it does now. Easier now to make these connections,
Sure.
with others than it did back then. So,
Well, thanks, Mom. I really
you're
appreciate
welcome,
it.
love. You're welcome. Okay.
Thanks for stepping into the reads with us and coming out the other side on our mother and daughter episode. Please follow along, like, share, subscribe. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram at outofthereads.podcast and TikTok at Out of the Reads. Also, if you want to watch more content, you can check us out on YouTube. You could be watching now on YouTube, or you might be listening on Spotify, Apple. We love to engage with you and get a chance to build community. That's really what this is about. And for those of you looking for a continuation of the stories or wanting to know more, you can find my book, The Art of Motherhood, online at barnesandnoble.com or on amazon.com. And I'd love to interact and share more with you. So if you're also wondering about being on the podcast, you can go to my website, www.outofthereads.com, and drop me a line, send me an email, and see about maybe guest speaking on the show. If you have a story about your own motherhood or your own parenthood, or just something that, you've experienced along the way that you feel like might be a good fit or you'd like to share your story, I'd love to hear it. So please get in touch with us that way. Thank you for stepping out of the reads with us today. Have a great one.